So welcome to Access Services Strengthening the Community podcast. And May is National Foster Care Month. And so we're excited today to have a conversation about foster care, how we do it at Access Services, a little bit about that, and then talk about what does it take to, we say that it takes a village to raise a kid. And so how does foster care play into that? How is foster care services, how does that strengthen the community itself? How can the community be part of that? How does it all work together? So those are some things we're going to talk through and some questions we're going to ask related to that today. We have Ursula as a guest here today. So Ursula, you want to explain a little bit about who you are and what you do here at Access?
Sure, thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here talking with you today about foster care. I actually just started Access Services several months ago, but I've been working in foster care or in the child welfare system for about 15 years. You know, foster care, when done correctly and when provided the right supports for the children, you can see them thrive. You can see them turn any negative feelings into positive ones, and just you can see the light just brighten up in their eyes and in their whole being. So I just love seeing the success stories, seeing them achieve permanency. So that's what really got me into foster care and what wants.
Part of your why.
Yeah, part of my why.
Yeah. Very cool. I think a lot of times when people think about foster care, they think about some hard thing happening for a kid or for a family, and it sort of has that hard or negative connotation, but you use the word thrive, which is, I think, really cool. That's really the goal, is to help young people thrive and do well in the community and move into the community as young adults. So
yes,
really
definitely.
Cool. Yeah, cool. How do people or kids and young people get into the foster care system? How does that usually happen?
Yeah, I mean, when you kind of noted about it, it's just the traumatic events usually that lead them into foster care. You know, unfortunately, if their biological family is unable to care for them, it's usually not for one reason. It's usually a combination of factors. It could be related to substance abuse, to neglect, to homelessness, to mental health issues that, again, cause the biological families to be unable to care for them. They are given chances to fix the problems, but even with those chances, if they're not able to, they're placed in the foster care system. So, children who come to foster care just we call it the invisible backpack of these traumatic events. So it takes a village to address those. We have to address the trauma that comes with the child, and when addressed properly, then that's when you see the children can start to overcome their issues and, again, become their greatest potential.
Yeah. The idea of, I'm a young person and I'm growing up in a family that's chaotic. Maybe there's a little bit of abuse to it or some neglect to it. So there's some things that are hard, and maybe that experience is a little bit traumatic for me, and so that's what's getting everybody's attention. But it's also my family, and so I might have really mixed feelings about being taken. I don't have a choice in it. I'm being taken from my family, even though when other people look at it, they say it's not good for Mark to be in that family, and that's probably true. But also, it's hard. The act of being taken from my family is also very traumatic. So, or could be, I guess. So, how do we help Mark land? How do you sort of help make that transition okay with and how does a foster family do that? Knowing that it's necessary, but the goal is really that you want me with my natural family, my biological family, because this is where I belong.
Yeah, part of our training for foster parents and for our staff is to have good relationship with the biological families, no matter what issues they're going through, no matter how difficult sometimes it is to have that kind of relationship. But we always want to, to build that bridge with the biological families, because as you noted, the children, that's all they've known, and they love their parents. No matter how dysfunctional they may seem, that was their source of love from the time they were born. So just trying to work with them, I think, even through permanency, even if the goal of reunification is no longer a goal, we still incorporate the biological family into the permanency plan, because we still want that connection with them. And then, as the children grow up and they grow wiser, and some kids even at a young age, I was recently at court, and a child, they were able to verbalize, I love my parents, but I know I can't live with them right now. I would like to stay with my foster family. So children, they know, over time, what a stable family looks like, for them,
Yeah.
and they, they want that for themselves too. No matter how much they love their family, they will never stop loving their biological families. But they themselves, everybody wants stability in their lives. So,
Yeah.
So for us as staff and as foster families, we want to support that. We never want to speak badly about their family,
Right.
again, because that's their source of love for so long. But we just want to be able to have good relationships all the way around.
Yeah. It seems like there's a lot of emphasis on just managing or supporting relationships and helping them just to be as good as they can be.
Right.
And keeping those connections alive and keeping those relationships as strong as they can be.
Yeah, and I really speak highly of my staff who
Yeah.
can manage all these relationships that they deal with, with the kids, with the foster families, with the biological families, with all the professionals that they work with.
So maybe you could talk a little bit about that too. Like, how do you prepare and equip foster parents, foster families to sort of enter into this, and then how do you support that?
Yeah, we work with people who have interest in becoming a foster parent, but a lot of them have that anxiety, like, can I be a good foster parent?
Right.
And we always go to them, yes, of course you can be a good foster parent, because we always tell them, you're not doing this alone. You have the support of staff, you have the support of the other professionals who work with the children, and we give a lot of training beforehand and during their course of being a foster parent. And as they have a placement in their home, we provide ongoing support from our coordinators and our whole team. Our foster parents, like we don't say that it's an easy job, because it's not an easy job. It's the hardest job. Parenting is just the hardest job in the world. But you will get support from us, and especially during those crisis moments, there's always a phone call that they can make 24/7 with our agency, and you will get the support that they need to overcome that crisis situation. But we do tell them honestly, it's a job that's difficult, but it's very rewarding. Again, like their foster parents, they have firsthand experience of seeing a child, they can become successful, with the right tools and, addressing their issues in the right way.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful, rewarding experience.
Yeah, sure. My kids are in their 30s now, but I remember some of those parenting years where I would say to myself, I'm certainly not winning any parent award today. But no, I guess knowing, that it's that relational thing too, where the staff are developing supportive relationships with the foster parents.
Yes, that's our main goal, right? Just to make them feel supported.
When I was, one of the benefits that I have of being around Access for so long is that I get to be at the starting point of a lot of programs. And so I don't remember what year it was, but I remember when we were asked, sort of in an emergency, to go help a young man who was in a psychiatric hospitalization, and he didn't really need to be there, but nobody knew exactly what to do. And that moment, us going to see him, it was actually Rob Reed, who was then the CEO. I called him up, but we weren't sure exactly what to do next, and so we actually went through our church directories and we made a list of people that we thought would be willing to help.
Okay.
And he called a couple, and a couple said, yes, we would love to do this. We don't know what we're doing, and we said, well, we don't know either. And so that's how it started. It was very organic and very grassroots, but it was really connected to the community, and we really relied on the community even as we thought about how are we going to help this person. So I guess one of my questions is how can the community, or how can people in the community, maybe I'm not doing foster care myself, but how can I help somebody who is doing foster care? What are some things that I can do to become the rest of that village, I guess, for that person?
Yeah, I would say there's definitely always opportunities to be involved with the foster care system. I think first and foremost to kind of build that awareness for yourself, educate yourself about what foster care is, what the system is about, what the goal of foster care is. Donations is always a good thing too, to support the foster children and families. Donation of clothes and baby items. And, I think that if you Access Services do accept donations too for those kinds of things. So and again, like becoming a foster parent is a process, and it's not something that we rush for anybody, any individual. So we meet you where you are, and I'm very proud of our program. Our coordinators and our staff work very hard every day to support our children and our foster families, and we always want to be able to have the children grow up and be a member of this community, like a very valuable member of this community. But it comes with that support from everyone, even if it's indirect.
From a foster care point of view, what are the like the secret sauce? What are the ingredients that go into just helping a kid get past the trauma that they're involved in and sort of move on? When you think of the kids who, wow, they really have thrived in this space with this family, what are some of the key ingredients of that?
I think if you ask every foster child that's been through the system and coming out of the system too, I think the number one thing that they look for is like safety and security, just feeling safe where they are, whether it's in the homes, whether it's in the schools, whether it is in the community. So whoever you are, like if you're working directly in foster care or just indirectly volunteering your time, just making that child feel safe and secure with themselves and in the community that they're in. And again, there's the volunteer opportunities. I do want to mention the opportunity that came across for me a couple months ago was a Valley Youth House. Is looking for mentors. You can be connected to a foster youth and spend time with them about a couple times a month. And it's just all about building that support system so that when they meet challenges in their lives, they have that resiliency because they feel safe. They feel like there's something that can back them up. So it's not, when we build that support system, build more individuals in that support system, they feel safer in life.
Yeah, that's neat. It's relational. It's I may not set out to do great things in foster care or be this great volunteer, but I can spend some time with this person in front of me and I can get to know them. And the power of that is way bigger than maybe I think it is when I give a little bit of my time and that connection, that human relationship seems really important.
Yeah, the child will always remember that the person that you are, and again, if you're someone that they trust and have confidence in, they will come back to you and ask for that help when needed, and it's a very good thing.
I think it's important for us to sort of mention these things or talk about these because I think sometimes when we look at like when I think about myself, like, could I do foster care? I think, do I have this like high level skill set? Am I walking around with this like skill set? But really, you get support for that. You get trained in that. But really, can I give of myself to a person, and can I do that relationally? That's the most powerful center of it. And the other things we can sort of build on and get help for.
I mean, our foster parents come from all walks of life. We have single parents, like 2-parent household. We have men, women. I mean, it doesn't require like a high skill set. It just requires like compassion. Again, like the trainings that we give them, especially trainings focused on trauma, just learning about what trauma is and really taking that to heart. And so when that you're working with the children or parenting the children, that whatever behaviors they have, it's not because they're quote unquote bad kids, it's because they're reacted in a way because of the trauma that they experienced. So I mean, foster parents, like, it's not a high skill set. It's just all about compassion. Again, making sure the child feels safe in their home and just reacting in a way that they feel heard and validated.
How has, we were talking about, my experience with this really sort of boots on the ground, sort of this moment when we got started, and that led into all of our other children's services at the time. But that was decades ago. So how has foster care changed, and what's the sort of the trend of it now?
I think the biggest change, I know that there's been in the last 10 years a movement away from children going into residential and group homes. That's why it's just so important for people to even just to start to think about, can I be a foster parent, because we just want children to be in a space that's familiar with them, like a family. We want them to be in a family setting. We do notice that there's more children, older youth in foster care. It's harder to find homes for older youth, but really, like, I think that some parents or some people think that it's difficult to foster older kids, and I do see the challenges of that too. I have 3 teenagers myself right now, but they, I feel like they're the most vulnerable actually, and it actually could be the most rewarding experience seeing the child age out of foster care with confidence and with the skills to make it in this world. So I think it's again, it just takes compassion and just a heart for wanting to make a difference in their lives. I think that because teenagers are in the part of their lives where they're just trying to figure out themselves and want that independence. Sometimes that yearn for independence can come out in behaviors that might be challenging. But again, it's just about being consistent in your parenting. strong communication skills with your teenagers, and putting boundaries in there. A teenager will never say I want boundaries, but they actually they'll say it in different ways. But just putting boundaries in, and again, like just spending time with them. They just want someone to hear them and to love them. That's all they want.
Yeah, and you mentioned vulnerability, and so there's that maybe that I present myself as somebody, I have a behavior challenge or I'm challenging a curfew or something like that. I still want safety.
Absolutely,
I still want to know that
security.
I'm okay here, that I belong here.
Yes.
I still want to know that you care for me.
Absolutely,
Can we talk a little bit about how the process of leaving foster care? Like, I know that the statistics are a couple years old now, but like over 3/4 of young people leaving foster care didn't really have much in the way of services to support them into like those transition into young adulthood and the services that might be needed for them to land well as young adults, and they might not have access to some of the things that other kids might have if they're part of their biological family's network. So what are the challenges of that, and what can be done?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you read the statistics, it could be kind of grim, just because the older youth coming out of care, if they're not properly equipped, they are at more risk of like homelessness or substance abuse, and just a lot of challenges. So again, it's just about as they are in foster care, even during the last few years up until they're 21, it's just making sure that they feel supported, to make sure that they have a network that they can fall back on when something goes wrong. Again, it doesn't necessarily have to be a foster family. I know that although there's a lot of foster families out there who are very generous and they continue to support the foster child even out of foster care. But again, so that through that mentorship program that I talked about, even if you're in their lives as a volunteer, it's just somebody they can just call and say, hey, I just need some advice right now. So, I mean, I think that's really key. Just being part of their support networks. However, people in the community want to be a part of that. I think I would encourage people to look at volunteer opportunities because they do need help all the way around.
Right. And young people, I mean, young people everywhere, we all need that help at that's a critical moment where we're faced with the reality that we have to go adult now, and that's hard for everybody. So it may not be magic either. It's just sort of can people have support in their life to navigate that sort of transitional period of time in their life and land well.
Yeah, I think like with older youth, we really emphasize learning about money management skills, learning about how to even search for college, how to do well in a job interview, what to do if in a job you feel challenged, if you're working with a difficult employer or a boss. So these are things that they need help developing their skills. I mean, I think all older youth, foster care, not foster care, they need help with that.
Sure.
So again, like through volunteer opportunities, I think that's a way to work with youth to build those skills so that they're prepared. Those practical skills.
And this is an aside here, but this is also why we have the TIP program, which is the Transition to Independence. So we know that there's lots of young people who just need a little bit of support to land well in young adulthood. And so that's sort of the other side of the coin of how we as an organization try to provide services in areas that we see as need.
All right, thank you, Mark, for talking about foster care and our TIP program. We are going to talk with John today, who is served by our TIP program and is also a former foster youth. It's so good to be with you here today. I'd love to just get started with you introducing yourself, telling us who you are, and a little bit of why you're part of this episode today.
My name is Jonathan. I'm 24 years old. I'm here today just to basically talk about my experiences with being in foster care, being a youth who lives in foster care, the experiences I've had to go through, how I've transitioned out of foster care and into adulthood, and basically just my overall experiences with all those.
That's great. I'm really glad you're willing to share with us whatever you're comfortable with. Do you want to start out kind of sharing a little bit about your overall story?
So my story is very complicated. I had a very rough childhood. My parents were both substance abusers, and I was kind of caught in the middle of that. They ended up separating when I was 12, And I would say probably from there, like the dysfunction in our family just got really, really, really bad. When I was 15, I signed myself into foster care because my mom was incarcerated and I was at a runaway shelter at the time. I told them like a little bit about my story and like everything that happened, like because I was dealing with like my mom was doing to my brother and I, and they told me they were like, maybe you should try going into foster care. You might, you know, be in a better environment. You'll be able to get, you know, proper care that you need.
Yeah.
I wanted that, so I gave it a chance. And yeah, when I was 15, I signed myself in.
Yeah, that's a big decision to make at that age. Do you overall feel like you had a positive experience with the foster care system? What would you like to change about your experience?
Overall, I would say I didn't really have a good experience in the foster care system. The first family I went to, it really didn't even feel like a family. It was kind of just like, I was just kind of like being babysat, kind of stuff like that. I wouldn't be allowed to turn the AC on until like 9 o'clock at night. I wouldn't be able to like eat unless it was like dinner time or it was like designated snack time or like unless like the other.
It's not a nurturing environment to step into.
Yeah, it was very controlling. It just felt very like just like disappointing because I've always wanted to have like a family that like cared about me, and I thought maybe by doing this I would be closer to that.
Do you think maybe some different community supports at that time would have made things look different?
Yeah, if I was connected with like the services I'm connected with now, I feel like it would have saved me a lot of like mental anguish, honestly.
Sure. Could you actually tell, because you know the listeners probably aren't familiar, talk to us a little bit about what those services are now that might have helped you back then as well?
Right now I'm with Access Services in the TIP program, and I'm also with Valley Youth House. Okay.
That's great. And what are you doing with them? What are you finding that's supportive to you with those organizations?
They've been supporting me in going back to school, looking for jobs, looking for housing, benefits like applying for food stamps, applying for health insurance and stuff like that. Thankfully, because of them, I've been able to like get food stamps. I've been able to have a doctor. And I've been able to get housing. I wish that they at least. I wish that like kids in foster care would at least have like more like social, I guess like support, because like I didn't really have that at the time. It was just me by myself with like my thoughts in my head, and I had to figure things out a lot on my own. And it was just really hard.
That's a lot for anyone, but especially someone who's young and having a life transition from not only being in foster care back with your biological family, but also just into adulthood. How did you end up finding, I know right now you currently are part of our TIP program, which I'd love to hear what you would describe TIP as in your own words.
In all honesty, it's like having someone like an older sibling, honestly, kind of like help you out and just like show you like how to be a better adult, how to improve your life.
I love that.
Yeah, it's been awesome. My caseworkers have been huge helps to me. Like I said, they helped me apply for health benefits, housing, going back to school.
Awesome.
If I didn't have them, I'd be lost, honestly.
Well, I'm glad you found them. How long have you been working with your TIP case manager?
I've been working with my TIP case manager for 3 years, I think.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, 3 years. And ever since then, I've been meeting with my caseworker for like once a week.
Wow.
More. Yeah,
That's awesome.
and it's been helpful.
That's awesome. How would you, like, say there's a foster teen in a position similar to yours? What would you recommend to them with what you know is actually realistically available in the system right now?
I would honestly tell them, start by trying to find a case manager, like someone who is like a certified peer specialist or a blended case manager. I would like start by trying to tell them, like, try looking into like therapeutic services.
Okay.
Seeing what kind of services are like very flexible with like your schedule, with like transportation. I would try telling them to like look for stuff like that.
Okay.
Any resource in the community. Just get involved with somebody, you know, so that you're not just like in your head all the time figuring stuff out. Literally getting in touch with anyone can make the biggest difference.
Yeah.
And I'd also tell them to keep up with school, stay in school, and don't like give up or start to fumble just because of what's going on. Or at least try not to. It's hard to, but at least try not to. Resources to get connected with, like get set up with like a career. I think that would be very helpful, helping them transition, making sure that they have proper housing, and like affordable housing, affordable education. I think would be ideal for them. Getting some sort of, if they don't have like their driver's license or anything like that, getting set up with transportation or a car would be very helpful, because that was a very big thing when I got out of foster care.
Do you feel like the supports like that you had in your life were like well aware of resources or maybe needs that foster care students would have? Or do you think that maybe we could do a better job educating our educators and our different like safe adults in the different systems we have?
Yeah, we can definitely do a better job educating them, I would say. I mean, always, more we can do, I would say, educating people about that kind of stuff.
What about your experience with, other students?
Yeah, I honestly, I really kept to myself in school. I didn't really talk to anyone. And I also kind of wanted, I didn't want to, like, I was worried, like, if I said something negative about my family to my friends at the time, that I would end up having consequences that I'd have to deal with back home when I went. Yeah, it made me feel like I'm the only person to really deal with things.
It also makes me think about you even not feeling comfortable sharing this with your peers in school. Like, I wonder how we can help children who are the same age as these other children in foster care have a better understanding and compassion for the kids they're meeting in school.
In all honesty, I don't really know.
I don't know either.
I guess, if I had to, take a shot, I guess I would say, trying to educate them that people who appear to be lonely, try to make friends with them, try to support them. If you see someone that looks down, maybe just say something nice to them, or give them a compliment. Ask them if they need any help. Are they doing okay? I guess just trying to include include them more. Be more inclusive for them. Could really go a long way, honestly.
Absolutely. I think that can venture into many different categories of where kids can struggle, of just having people around that are more inclusive, willing to say hi, willing to say, come sit with me. And you don't have to go deep and be like, why are you alone? Are you this? Are you that? But just having someone that you feel like sees you and will let you come and sit at the physical or metaphorical table, I think can be really impactful. I'm sure many people will be grateful that you're willing to share your experience and your story. Both people who maybe have had similar experiences to you, or maybe people that want to learn more about how they can be supportive to foster children and foster parents, or foster providers who want to do a better job and learn more and be more inclusive. if you could tell the community one thing about being a foster child, what would you want them to know?
It's rough. It's very lonely, and if there are kids in the community who are in foster care, I would treat them with respect, because you don't know what they're going through. You don't know their entire story.
Yeah.
1,000 different things that could have happened to them. Just be supportive to them as you can. Like I said, be inclusive for them. Communicate with them. Offer help if they look like they're struggling. Take time to actually listen to them. Can really go a long way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really grateful, and I know that the people listening will be as well. Awesome. Well, thank you.
I have Juli here with me, and Juli, you've been around Access for a while now too, like I have.
On and off,
right?
yeah.
On and off. Right? Well, I've been mostly on, but we're glad to have you back.
Thank you.
And you have some history in the foster care system. Some at Access, some not. But you want to just talk a little bit about sort of how you got into this and sort of into the topic of foster care. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Juli Apple. I'm back at Access Services after a hiatus, working as a community liaison and a provider recruiter. So I'm so excited to be back here at
There's
Access
fine
Services.
print. Like you leave and then there's fine print.
There
we
is.
get you back, right?
You come back, yeah. So don't bother leaving is what I tell people now, because you're going to come back anyway.
Right.
But part of my career here at Access and then after was working in the foster care department here. And then I went on to work in a post-adoption program and spent a good chunk of my career working with adoptive families who had mostly adopted from the foster care system.
How do we help that? How does Access help that? How do we prepare and then support foster parents so that they can navigate all the daily stuff and also the behavior sometimes of the daily stuff, and also there's a human being underneath here that has some pretty deep needs to heal.
Yeah, I think that, educating yourself as much as possible as a foster parent to, really taking your trainings in earnest. If you have a training to go through, that you're really paying attention and not just going through the motions, but saying, we're giving you this information because it could become relevant at some point. It may not be now, depending on who you're fostering or what your experience is, it may not be relevant now, but somewhere down the line, this tidbit of information might become really important. So really taking that, the training to heart, we as an agency think carefully about what we want you to know so that you're prepared to be a foster parent. Behaviors on the surface don't always reflect what's going on underneath, and it can be very different. You can be like, that behavior makes no sense given that this is the context. But truly, if you can get to the root of it and understand it better, not only have you maybe solved a problem, and resolved some behavior, but you've really created a connection with the child. And it's those connections that are the building blocks to developing trust and developing that relationship that will allow you to get deeper and to be able to help them through the hard times.
So it's rewarding. It's also hard.
Absolutely.
And there's things we can do to equip foster families to sort of handle it, but also it takes caregivers of the caregivers. We have to help each other.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, our theme here is about strengthening community. So maybe reflect for a moment on how providing foster care, not only helps a kid, but it also strengthens our community. How do you sort of think through that?
A couple things come to mind, but one is that kids who've been through challenging experiences have a higher chance of having adverse experiences as an adult. So one of the things that we can do to strengthen our communities is giving those children the opportunity to overcome those challenges so that they have a better likelihood of being successful members of the community when they get to adulthood. Another thing that I would say is whether or not it's a foster parent, it really only takes one caring adult to make a difference in the life of a child. There's research that shows that just one adult who steps out of their comfort zone or indicates in some way, hey, you know what, I'd like to be there for you.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if that's a parent, a friend, a mentor, a Sunday school teacher, a teacher in a school system. If that one person says, I care about you and I want to be there for you. And if you need someone, I want to be someone that you can talk to. That one caring adult can make a really big difference in that child's life. And conversely, I think make a really big difference in that person's life too. I think the other thing that comes to mind when I think of strengthening communities is just broadening your experiences. I think we have stronger communities when we understand that everybody comes from a different context, and there's there's different ways of looking at things, and just understanding what somebody is going through, or any hardship that they've faced, or anything they've overcome, or we all have things that happen in our lives, and the more we know about other people's things, the more we can understand people in general. Does that make sense?
And it also gives us a perspective on our own. Like oh yeah, there's somebody looking at me, and they have a sense of who I am, and I have a better. Our conversation helps me understand myself a little better. Yeah. So you're a recruiter. You like to be the person who says, I think, Mark, you should be a foster parent. So what are some of the common things that people, like, I'd never considered myself as somebody who could be a foster parent. What are some of the things that people are thinking about or worried about, or what are the things that you hear when you have this conversation out and about?
Yeah, actually, it's interesting because one thing I hear a lot is I've always thought about doing this, but
there's a but in there.
But it wasn't the right time, or but I don't have an extra room in my home, or but I'm scared. I'm nervous. I have these concerns or these trepidations, and so.
Have you seen my kids? It's a full-time job.
Exactly. I've got a handful already. I think that a lot of people that open the conversation with us actually have thought about it before. It's crossed their minds, but they haven't acted on it yet because of these these buts. But some of the concerns that they have are, can I work outside the home, or do I need to be a stay-at-home parent? What if I can't take the child to every one of their appointments? I don't know if I have enough time to do this. So a lot of times people are just nervous, or what if the behaviors are more than I can manage? It's kind of those what ifs. And what we find is that when we start connecting with them and hearing what their questions and concerns are, and answering some of their questions, and just developing a relationship with a staff person in the agency, with that person who's thought about it, it just gives them the opportunity to decide if it really is something that they want to pursue. And we're patient. We're we're not we're in as much of a hurry as they're in, is what we say. But we're happy to be there for you, to answer your questions, to dissolve any myths that you might have, or just to give you some tools to prepare you to make that decision. So like I said, we often have people that we work with for a year or two, not constantly, obviously, but on and off for a year or two, but developing that relationship where they know they can, that it's okay to contact us with another question. There's no limit on the number of questions you can ask to make sure that you're ready.
You have 20 questions.
And developing a rapport with an agency allows you to develop that level of trust that you feel like you could move forward with this agency. So we just encourage people, if you've ever even thought about it, just reach out to us or come up to us at an event if you see a table out in the community, and just let us know what you're where you're at. We always start with where are you at, nice. and then figure out what we can do to support you in your decision-making process.
We're talking about foster care. How do you talk about the way in which just sort of the community, if I'm just a member of the community, I don't view myself as somebody who's going to be doing a foster care, be a foster care provider, but I'm listening to this, or I know it. I just know it's a big deal, and so I want to help out in some way. What are what are just some different ways that people could be involved as a support? This is the community. The community is strong, and so it helps foster care.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people know someone who is a foster parent, or you might be able to contact, your kid's school and say, hey, is there a foster family I could support? And they could possibly connect you with someone, or you could contact an agency like ours and say, I'd like to support a foster family. Some of the supports that are provided to foster families, it kind of depends on what they need, but it could be meals or transportation to appointments, or babysitting for the other kids, so that you are freed up to go on an appointment with a foster child. So there's also just being there to listen. So I guess my advice would be that either connect with one of these organizations that is kind of putting some framework around this for you, so that you can just jump in and they'll tell you what to do. Or connect with a foster family and say, is there something I can do to support you? Make it relational, absolutely. And it could be somebody that you know from your community, or from maybe somebody you work out with at the gym. You find out they're a foster parent, and you say, hey, is there something I could do to support you? That's fantastic. And I think it's a morale booster, not only because it frees you up. There might be some time or some energy that you've allowed to free up, so that you can be a better caregiver. And even I'm even stretching that to say that you could be a high school student or a college student and play that role. You don't have to be in adulthood and settled and everything to maybe jump into a role, big brother, big sister type of mentor role, or just your friend's family is a foster family, and you say, hey, is there something I could do to help you? And you can be a young person and do that as well. So even our college kids who might be listening, there's a way that you can help.
Years ago, there was somebody was in our foster care program, and he was a young man that was struggling in school, sort of struggling in different places, and we had to go to a big school meeting. It was an interagency team meeting. There's lots of people going to be in it. We knew that it was scary for this young man, and so we said, do you have anybody that you would like to come to this meeting? So he said, yeah, well, my friend Billy, who was also a student in his class. I'm like, well, I don't think anybody's brought a friend Billy to an interagency team meeting. It's like a big deal. So we said, well, let's ask. And so Billy and his mom agreed to come to this meeting. And we were trying to figure out how to help this young man just be more involved in the community in positive ways. Like he had recently started foster care. He was new to the area. He was trying to get to a new school, like all the things that make that hard. And Billy said, well, I have a paper route. He can just get a paper route with me. And by the time the meeting was over, we had it all worked out. He had talked to somebody, and the young man got a paper route with his buddy Billy, and got connected to the community that way. And it was so to the point of like it doesn't have to be a big thing, and anybody can do it. It just is a matter of seeing it, asking if there's something that they can do to be helpful, and being willing to try a small thing.
Absolutely. One thing I would note in terms of trends, one of the trends has been to try to keep the child in the same school district. So that is actually huge in terms of supporting a child, because they haven't been uprooted from everything in their life. They have moved away from their biological family at this point, but the hope is we can keep them in the same school district, so they can keep their teacher, they can keep their friends, they can keep that routine that they're used to. So we do try to place within the school district now, so that we still try to match, but within a certain geographical location. Nice. I'm personally very supportive of that. It was really difficult to watch foster kids be uprooted from everything that they knew and move to like a different part of this area, of this region. And so keeping them at least with as many ties as they can.
To their own support network.
Is really important. So that's been an interesting trend that I've seen in my span of my
travels.
career.
Cool. Well, thanks again.
You're welcome. My pleasure being here and connecting with you after
all
many
these
years of
right?
access.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. We hope that you enjoyed hearing from people who are strengthening our communities every day. Search for and follow us on your preferred streaming platform to hear future episodes.